Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 26 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks alongside my man Nick Partain. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We also have, ladies and gentlemen, a special guest with us who's actually a part of the Eastern Observer family, the co-host to the brand new Essential Wrestling podcast, Al Carl. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all give a warm welcome, a virtual hand clapping, if you will, Al Carl. Al, thank you so much for joining in and being serving as the pinch hitter for Tyler Adelle, who is currently on the injured list right now.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for having me back. For those that remember, actually, I have been here, I think, on 2 other occasions to talk a little bit of scripted sports, I guess, if you want to call it that. But yeah, appreciate you having me back. Tyler is my sheriff, just as you guys dubbed him. I am his deputy. I'm more than happy to fill in for him whenever possible. Thank you for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it, Al. Nick, it's been 2 weeks, buddy. The hair's getting a little long. I love it. And I know for a fact, too, it's going to be soon, but you're going to see the same exact thing in this backdrop. Nick has it in his house. It's going to be put up sooner than later, but we'll see. It's going to be fun in the next couple of weeks to see how it's going to fit in his house. But it's going to look very.
My house.
Say it again.
It's going to be my house.
Yeah. It's going to look fantastic. But just to let everyone know, and there's a little surprise here, episode number 26 is presented to you by ProWrestlingPick'em.com. That is Al's website here. Al's got the card there, ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Play against, what's the exact slogan again, Al?
Play against your friends. Play against the universe.
Right. There you go. Play against your friends. Play against the universe. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, pwppick'em.com for all your pro wrestling pick'em things. So now with all that being out of the way, we cannot thank everyone enough for joining us here on this Saturday evening. I did have a little bit of an issue myself yesterday, as did Tyler. So we do apologize for moving it onto this Saturday evening on Memorial Day weekend. Thankfully, though, here in the New York tri-state area, it is pretty humid and muggy outside and raining outside. So for those that are joining us here on this Saturday evening, we cannot thank you enough. Let's get into it, guys. There's so much to talk about. We had a bye week last week. Not a lot to discuss. But the biggest thing right now, the three of us being hockey fans, one of which is that the 24-team playoff format is going to be, or was rather, approved by the NHL Players Association. So now, as I did say earlier, or just a couple of seconds ago, it will be coming to fruition. So the way that looks is that the Islanders at this point in time will be the 7 seed hosting the number 10 seed, or I guess would be the home team, if you will, wherever that is. We'll talk about that in just a moment with the hubs that Commissioner Gary Bettman was speaking about. And the 10th seed would be the Florida Panthers. So the way it looks is that there will be some hubs similar to the NBA or similar to the way NASCAR is right now, where they're only allowed to race or play in certain states that have reopened. And right now, this state here in New York is slowly reopening. That is the suburbs of New York City. So downstate New York, Long Island is a very big possibility where the Coliseum may actually play, guys, as a hub. But then now they're also talking as Buffalo could be one, because that's in Western New York, in Buffalo region, or Niagara region rather. But then you also have Las Vegas, which is another possibility too. They're talking about Los Angeles being one. The state of California is slowly in the process of reopening. Texas could be one where we could see Dallas as a spot. Florida, Sunrise, Miami, where the Panthers are. And then also you have Tampa Bay too, where the Lightning play their home games at Amalie Arena. Fellas, I want to hear what you guys think of this 24-team format, because the regular season at some point has to come to an end, or I know Nick's thought was just to scrap it, but now that it's not going to be scrapped, what are your thoughts on this 24-team playoff format?
Man, the league will do anything to get the Blackhawks and Canadiens in the playoffs, huh? Just pick a number out of a hat, right? How coincidental that they're the last 2 seeds that are squeezing in here. Wow, isn't that wonderful? But at this point, it really doesn't matter how you format it. I like that they're adding more teams. Why keep people on the sidelines? You're not extending the regular season, so give a couple teams a chance to play a little bit. It's weird, though, because teams that are getting a bye might end up at a disadvantage. Like, we've seen this in a lot of sports where it's only a week off or so that teams get hurt by this. These other teams are not going to have any live games against anybody, and then they're going to be thrown into a playoff series against a team that just played one. That could be major. We'll have to see how that kind of thing shakes out. But it's interesting. You know, a lot of the same matchups are going to end up happening if Boston and Toronto both advance. I think they're going to play each other. Like, that's a classic. So they still kind of kept it division-y a little bit so that things like that are going to stay the way they were. But we're going to have to see how it all plays out. It's going to be fun to see any kind of sports. It's nice that things are opening back up. We're seeing progress. I still think the safest thing would have been to cancel it and make sure next season was correct. But obviously, I'm going to embrace whatever they do and enjoy whatever it is to watch, because now that the Last Dance is over, I don't have anything sports-wise that I'm watching. Maybe a little Bundesliga, but it's not the same.
Right. And you know what? And I was going to say, I know Al has not watched The Last Dance yet. He will, though, but we'll have him on next time. So Nick and I will discuss that once Al's time is up at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I might get shot once you find out what I've been watching on Sunday nights.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's actually the 90-Day Fiancé show. It's train wrecks for 2 hours. It's hysterical. It's amazing.
It's kind of like this.
I love that show.
Yeah. So Al, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, I do have a couple of them, just off the top of my head. I guess when this whole thing started back in March, when this whole thing began and they were canceling everything, when I was watching the NHL Network, because I work as a part of the buildings in the league. I don't know if I can go into detail what I do or not. I don't know if that's whatever, but they
you can.
Okay, I work for the National Coliseum and the Barclays Center, the SMA, I believe, the new merger between the companies. I work for them. I work in the buildings. So I was intent to find out if I was have a job come April and so forth, with the Islanders being in the playoff race. And the only thing I can remember hearing in these press conferences throughout this, that they will do anything to award the cup this year. They will do anything at all costs to make sure that they award the Stanley Cup at the end of the season. I believe they actually mentioned the prior scenario, the Spanish flu. So that 1918, 1919, that was the last time they didn't award the Stanley Cup during the season. So it's been, like I said, it's at the 100-year mark right now, where they've been able to give out the trophy a year, and that was their top priority. Second to safety, obviously, but when you put everything all that aside, the top priority is to get that trophy and get a championship team and award it and have the celebration that the NHL likes to celebrate. So this doesn't shock me that they're coming to some sort of any type of way to make it fair. Now, he said you bring in the 12 teams. It's great because there was a lot of teams like the Islanders. If they would have just went with 8 teams, Islanders would have been 1 point out, if I remember correctly, the standings when everything stopped. They were 1 point out with 2 games in hand on the team in front of them. So there's the fairness. If they would have done based on win percentage, the Islanders would have been in, but if they did with points, it would have been out. So I can see how you want to do 12 teams. I completely agree with Nick. They got to do something right now, because if you're one of the top 4 teams in each conference and you're still idle while other teams, let's just say it's best of 5 right now, you got 2 teams that are going to play potentially 5 games, and they're going to come in full steam on a team that hasn't played anything yet. That team is going to get trucked. And I want to use the examples just last year as an example. And this happens a lot, even in baseball too. These weeks off, these bye weeks hurt. It's a very, you need the momentum. You need to see pitches. You need the ice time. You need real time gameplay here. Because if you look at what happened to the Islanders last year, it was all fun and games when we swept Pittsburgh, but we had a week and a half off because Carolina had to go 6 or 7, and then Carolina came in and steamrolled us. So and then Carolina ended up getting steamrolled after that. I think they got swept at the series after too. So I did hear a rumor. Like I said, I don't want to spread rumors, but if they did this I think it'd be great. Just do a quick round robin. Like every team gets a quick 2 games against each other before they start playing, maybe. Just do something to get everybody's legs back. So I know Bettman's big on they want to do at least a 2 or 3 week training camp before this starts as well. So
that's and honestly, that's the way it should be, because you look at Major League Baseball, which it's most likely we're going to see a July 1st opening day. And right now the clock is ticking. We do not know. I don't believe things are 100% approved, but it's going to be that route. And it's already May 23rd. It's Memorial Day weekend. So you figure that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, at the latest 3 weeks, teams and I would say executives too, they have to know what plans are going to be like. They need to know where they're going to play. They need to know how or what, or not even that, but also, let's say, the grounds crew, stadium crews, how they're going to, prepare. Are they going to have, they're obviously going to have social distancing, where it's not everyone's going to be in the dugout. Is everyone going to be on the bench like in the NHL? We don't know how it's going to be. You speak about the round robin and everything like that and what has to be done. Things have to be put into place now if you want things to start to happen.
100%, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it has to. And not only that too, but in addition to the safety measures that I would say are a little, listen, I look at it and I say to myself, okay, I look at it from the business point. Yes, I understand revenue, money, but then I also look at the player safety, right? And we look at NASCAR, for instance, right? And yes, and Bundesliga too. I admit, I have not watched that yet. I only watched one NASCAR race. God help me, I did, because that's I know. Listen, it's very difficult, but I did. And I wanted to see what it was all about, because you have guys that are on top of each other. You have guys when they're changing, when they're going for a tire change or for a refuel. These guys are on top of each other. They're wearing masks. It's over 200 degrees, in your helmet or wherever it is. These guys need training camp. How is it all going to play out? You have to realize also, hockey is a very physical sport. Is there going to be some sort of surgical mask that they're going to put over? Is it going to be? The NFL actually came out, I believe, this week and said that they were experimenting with some sort of mask that had some N95 surgical material base, something like that. I think to myself, well, in an indoor sport, yeah, that's going to work. But then again, how are you? Obviously, there's going to be no fans or anything, but it's difficult to say when these guys are going to be coming back, playing however many games. I don't know the exact format of what it is, but you look at the top seeds right now of what it would be. The play-in series in the Eastern Conference would be Pittsburgh, Montreal, Carolina, the Rangers, the Islanders, Florida, Toronto, and Columbus. The way it basically was the entire time. The top seed from low to high, Philly, Washington, Tampa Bay, Boston in the Western Conference, Edmonton, Chicago, Nashville, Arizona, Vancouver, Minnesota, Calgary, Winnipeg. Top seeds, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis. I don't really know, Al, how that's going to be, how that's going to work out. And exactly what you said, these guys have to get some training in. And I consider that also a part of the safety measure. There's going to be a lot of problems when people come in and let's say, okay, we've seen Joe Thornton play with a torn ACL, and he's played at a high level with a torn ACL. And I get that, but I think that there will be a little bit more of caution when these guys come back because, well, all right, we're hurting here. Could have a pulled hamstring, whatever. We don't know what it is. And on top of it, guys, too, there's no fighting. There's no spitting on the benches. I get it. Listen,
yeah, Brad Marchand can't go around licking people either. We got to make sure that's in the rules too.
Yeah, really, what they should have, they should put gorilla tape over his mouth. It's difficult, fellas. Like I said, and exactly what Nick said, extremely grateful to see sports back. But with things start and on top of it, where they want it to be in October or potentially November return for the 2021 season, that's asking a lot, fellas. That's asking a lot. You don't think so?
I think they already kind of came out. I don't know if they ever came out and said it, but it's been widely rumored that if they finish this season during the summer, they're going to push next season back and start it in December. Like, there's no way you can play a playoffs this summer and then have them come right back around and start up October and do a full season. It's not going to happen. They're going to have to give them more time, at least till late November to get everything started again, especially because, like you said, there are going to be injuries bringing these guys back like this. Even if you have a training camp, early season injuries happen all the time in these sports when these guys, especially now because it's so much harder for people to work out, get their exercise in, stretching. A lot of guys are just home with their families. They're not getting these kind of things done. If you don't have a rink in your backyard or a home gym, it's really hard to find ways to work out and new ways to keep your body loose and ready to go when this kind of thing happens. So it's going to be tough for anything to work perfectly, properly that way. So it's going to be a major, major factor in all of this.
Yeah, I feel even it's like you got a 2 to 3 week training camp. It'll get some bugs out. If you go, you don't only go 2 days. You go about an hour a day on ice, hour and a half, 2 hours a day on ice, some gym time to go forward. Like I said, I don't mean to go against something that you mentioned earlier, Joe, but I don't think they're going to be cautious. I don't think they're going to be holding back at all. This is the Stanley Cup. This is they're just picking up where they left off. I mean, granted, there's gaps in between, but the goal of their careers, their dreams, their life is to put that thing over their head. Like that's been their goal, their dreams, and that's why they put their name, sign pen to paper for the contracts to play this game. So and you're right, they're going to push themselves, and then to Nick's point, they're probably going to be injuries early on, and then you got to rehab those. And he said, I like December as a starting point, just to go back to that. I'm kind of hopping around here, because you do need the draft. You do need another, probably a smaller training camp. I'm sure the teams that are not participating in the playoffs will probably, I'm sure their local arenas or even their practice facilities will be open for them to skate around. So I'm not worried about the teams. I guess how many teams aren't making the playoffs? 2.
Yeah, pretty much. Right.
But,
exactly. Yeah, it would be 7. Yeah.
So they, I'm sure they'll be back on the ice once all the restrictions. I'm not worried about them so much, but you do need a draft. You do need a free agency period.
Right.
There's a lot of things to go into it. But I feel it seems like for the past week, it's just been notification after notification. Bob McKenzie's breaking news left and right that things are moving forward. And as I said, as long as Brad Marchand doesn't lick people, I think we're good to go.
Right. Well, and that's another thing too. And that's the thing I look at. I think of hockey being, obviously a contact sport, which it is, going for, let's say, a cross check, any, or even on the forecheck, anything, guys, you are close. You are not 6 feet apart from each other. And from Nick's point previously in previous episodes, I think to this as, okay, so I did not have a problem with any of the outdoor sports. Now you think about it and you say to yourself, okay, now an indoor sport is going to be coming back. So you have hockey, you have basketball, which we'll get to in just a moment. But hockey being an indoor sport on the bench where everyone is literally next to each other, like this. You have your line mate right next to you. You have your coaches right behind you. You can't spit on the bench. You can't fight. Now, Al, back to your point where, they sign these contracts for the cup. But what I look at and I say to myself, okay, is it Stanley Cup and then is life number 2, or is it life number 1 and Stanley Cup number 2? Sorry, I just hit the microphone.
But the idea, I think, is they're going to do so much testing that by the time these guys get to game time, they're going to know that everyone around them doesn't have it. That's probably their hope, that they're going to be able to be a little more lenient on the contact during the games, because everyone's going to have to be tested 100 times to get into the building, to have the game start, have everything cleared up and made sure. That's why, because a lot of these coaches basically wouldn't be allowed to be on the bench near people if they don't make sure everyone around them is safe and healthy. So the only thing is, fighting is going to be a weird subject. Are they going to allow fighting? Because you could make a very strong argument that it's not necessary for the game, that it's unnecessary contact, that they don't want to make that kind of thing allowed. But if you take it out, it could open up a huge can of worms in terms of other things going on the ice that you don't want to make happen. There's going to be a lot more loose, dirty hitting. Like, goodness gracious, a game with Tom Wilson with fighting not allowed. What's going to happen there? He's going to end up getting 3 people killed. So it's a very strange subject to see what they're going to allow, what they're going to disallow, if they're going to have different kinds of hockey visors. Like, do you make sure the visor is permanent and lowered? Like, are they going to make it a full kind of visor kind of thing like they do in college hockey? who knows? They might have to do something like that. I feel like the framework was put in to get this thing going, but a lot of points still have to be hashed out between the Players Association and the league because they're going to still have a lot of things that have to get cleared up. We don't have any dates that we know of so far, so everything is just slowly moving in the direction. It's nice that they got a playoff format. Interesting that 2 teams said no. Did you guys hear about that? The team names came out. It's Carolina and Tampa voted no. Everyone else voted yes for this format. So those are 2 interesting choices. Tampa being one, having a bye, like we mentioned, how that could be rough for some teams. Carolina's an odd one to vote no. I think they're playing the Rangers, who weren't even a playoff team. Like, if you're going to pick an opponent, that's one of the ones you'd want. I don't see why they're upset about this, but they might have their own things. Safety, some other part of it that they don't like necessarily. Who knows? But those are the 2 teams that voted no. So I thought that was really interesting too.
I wouldn't be surprised with Tampa because Tampa, we saw last year, if I'm not mistaken, I believe against Columbus. Weren't they swept last year by Columbus? Right. And they were the 1 seed by far.
Yeah, they were one of the best regular season teams ever. Right.
That's what I'm saying. They were a record-breaking team in the NHL where they couldn't get it done. They couldn't win a game. I remember when they went down 3-0 in Columbus.
They were winning game 1, 3-0. Remember, we're at the Island. I'm like, wow, this is over. They should make this the best of 3. I made that exact comment. It was 3-0 Tampa, and then the whole thing shifted from that point. Crazy.
Yeah, really, really crazy stuff. But now, fellas, I do want to ask you these 2 things. And that question, actually, I meant to say, is courtesy of Nick. You can get a little chuckle here. Is courtesy of Anthony Zoccali, because he actually did ask what we thought of this and of this format. But now I do want to ask you guys this while we're on the topic of the NHL. With what Nick said about the visors, do we believe that we're going to see something different in terms of a face shield? Are we going to see the same exact face shield with maybe a covering? What do you guys think?
I think the players are going to be vehemently against anything different. They don't want anything to be unfamiliar. They're going to want everything the same. The league is probably going to say, hey, we don't want bad optics. We don't want to have any accidental. There's a lot of sweat and accidental spitting and things like that. We don't want your faces to be exposed. So who knows? We're going to see how this gets hashed out. My guess is they're not going to have additional shielding. I think it'll end up being all the same stuff. Because if you look at soccer, when the players are on the bench, they have face masks on and they're social distanced. On the field, nothing's different. It's the exact same situation. So you can assure that everybody is safe and healthy once they enter the building that day and they don't leave and nothing's dangerous or dirty or any kind of risk. I think everyone's going to want everything to be exactly the same. They want it to be familiar. They don't want to have wear different equipment or learn different rules while they're on the fly, especially when it comes to playoff time. Like Al said, this is the most important game. This isn't coming back mid-regular season where you have a few weeks to pick up on stuff. You're going to go right into the most important time you have. They're not going to be time to learn any kind of new rules and get used to new equipment. Athletes are creatures of habit. They're going to hate that.
Yeah, and this is a habit that they've been in probably since they were 16, 17 years old. Now, USA Hockey, the youth organizations that I grew up playing with, and whatever, the full cage, and you have to have the neck guard and all that. And I know USA's Hockey coming up with a rule. I think USA, I just to sidetrack this, USA, I think has to have full plastic. You can't have the cage holes, I don't think, right now. I think it has to be the full. I guess it was called iTex back when I used to play, but you don't need those when you play junior hockey. I think you can start playing junior hockey at the age maybe like 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that area. And obviously these are the best players in the entire world. And they all played at that level at some point in time, unless you're Sidney Crosby and you skip it and just go right to the NHL. Exactly, creatures of habit. There's even guys, Leo Komarov, Leo, right? So you're forced to wear the eye visor right now. All right, Leo's is it's up here, like his eyes are completely exposed, but he has the eye guard on it. So there's no way, Nick. I completely agree with you. There's no way they're going to go full cage. The only time a player is going to wear a full cage is if he has a broken jaw. So and even then, I'm sure that's not on his volition. I'm sure that's a trainer being like, listen, this has to be like this because you're already messed up as it is. It can't get worse or you're not playing. So now with that being said, Al, and this question is actually going to be
directed right to you, because you said earlier, you work for the Nassau Coliseum. You work, you are a part of the on ice team and everything along those lines. Now back to my point with baseball and the social distancing in the dugout, where you have guys that are most likely going to be in the stands because obviously no fans this year. And I wouldn't be surprised next year, but that's another topic for another day. But now, do you see where these players and coaches may have to be in the stands to social distance because the benches are very small?
I don't even know how that would be possible to put players in the stands. There's no, like, the way the arenas are set up, you can't like extend a certain part of it. That's going to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that I don't think teams are going to do for a short period of time. Even say if it's a year, they're not. I don't think they're going to change an entire hockey system. Especially, just using the Nassau Coliseum as an example. Their hockey system, that arena is old. That hockey system is just as old. I can't see them expanding it. I think they just have to. Exactly, it's just habitual testing. Everyone that walks through the door has to be negative, or you can't come in. I can't see a way of you're putting the coaches in the stands. That's the catwalks behind the benches. They're probably about 3 feet away, 2-3 feet away. So it's not ideal, but they're not right on top of the players. I'm sure, but every arena is different. I know some benches are shorter and longer. I guess it all depends on the arena they take, but I can't see that. I can see that being a part of the discussion, but I can't see that being a deal-breaking discussion.
Right, and the reason why I brought that up is because obviously you're a part of the ice crew, and also with the Nassau Coliseum, in serious discussion, not the Coliseum specifically, but the state of New York being a state that could be a hub, and especially with, again, the state, with the economies slowly beginning to boost, and having the Coliseum or the KeyBank Center up in Buffalo being a potential venue where you could have 24 teams play here or go into another city. The question has to be asked where, maybe then will one team or will the NHL maybe pay for it if they only do it in 2 hubs, where now that is the most recent article that was previously posted on ESPN and on NHL.com, where now they're saying it could be 2 hubs as opposed to 9, which honestly, again, I think that would be way smarter, but that's for another time. I do want to get into this though, fellas, with hockey. One last topic with this, because Al only has another half hour. When we had Brett Hedican, NBC Sports California color analyst for the San Jose Sharks, Inside the Glass, NBCSN, and former Carolina Hurricane on the Zoom interview series on Thursday night, and he considered lifting the Stanley Cup as euphoria, and that was the moment he said that everything that he went through, being traded with Pavel Bure, being traded multiple times, he would never give up. And in a time like this, when you have players that are ready to make the comeback, and with it most likely for a lot of these guys making an emotional return, and then to Nick's point, where some of these guys are going to get injured, it's inevitable. And they may not be able to hoist that cup because something may have happened to them, whether it be illness, whether it be an injury where they can't even where they can't hold the cup. What is a word that you guys think is comparable to euphoria that Brett Hedican said when he won his first and only Stanley Cup in 2006 with the Hurricanes?
I can't. I think that's the perfect word. I know we mentioned this to try to think of something else, but that's so nail on the head to me. Every year I get goosebumps, even if it's a team I hate and a team I didn't want to win. See, that cup gets raised, like Ovechkin. Like, oh my God! Like, I hate the Capitals. When Ovechkin held that cup over his head, it was just like, oh my God! Like, this is awesome. Like, that guy is living. That is the definition of euphoria, is what the way Alex Ovechkin was celebrating like a 5-year-old. you know, with the Stanley Cup over his head. I just got goosebumps now. Oh my God, I just got goosebumps now thinking about it. I think that's such a nail on the head word with this. I mean, that's the culmination of everything these guys have done with their entire life. And the guys with Ovechkin, that's when everyone's killing about Joe Thornton. You mentioned Joe Thornton earlier. I'm like, oh my God, 21 years now in the league. He's not quitting until he's going. He's coming back one more year. I think he is going to come back next season. I think they signed for one more year. Because if I remember correctly, San Jose had a very bad seison this year.
Yeah,
they were not the Sharks they've been the past 5 years.
Well,
so
that was coming.
He wanted to be traded. That's what it was. He wanted out of San Jose to go to a contender because he thought this might have been it, and then he didn't get traded. So he's coming back for one more time. So it just goes to show you, Joe Thornton's older than we are. You guys are older than we are, of course, older than I am. I'm in 40 now, but he's not stopping until he gets it. Like that's just that right there is just and it's every sport too. It's a Stanley Cup for hockey, but it's also the Lombardi Trophy. It's also, it's every. I don't know the names of the other trophies, but it's
the Larry Brown Trophy, the NBA, the World Series, the Commissioner's Trophy. Yeah.
I'm siding with Al. Euphoria is the nail on the head best word. There's no. I tried. I racked my brain. You can get other words: jubilation, excitement, things like that, but they don't hit as perfectly as Euphoria.
No, it does not do it justice.
Incredible full body happiness that these players go through. The combination of being happy for winning and relief of it all being done, an accomplishment that all this time you've put in, all this work you've done is all paid off into the most perfect way. And it's also amazing to me that guys who have already won before show the same level of excitement and euphoria every time. Blackhawks winning 3 in a 6-year span. Every single one of those guys still being as happy as they were the first time. The Penguins winning 2 in a row after having a bunch of years off. Back-to-back, doesn't matter. Every single guy treats it like it's the first and last time he'll ever do it. It's just an unbelievable show of happiness and euphoria.
I can piggy off that one real quick just by going with the next one. My former Lord and Savior, Tom Brady. All right, when he was at Michigan, he was talking to one of his coaches, and I guess at that point in time, I don't know if they were just killing everybody in the Big Ten or running or whatever. So Tom Brady went to his coach, and he's like, "Coach, what was your favorite Big Ten championship?" And he's like, "The next one."
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that Brady has, and that's the mentality I guess they all should. Exactly, you win it for the third time, and it's just like winning it for the first. You never know when you get back. That's Dan Marino. You never know when you get back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is very true. And not only that too, you look at guys that embrace it every single time and exactly what we've heard numerous times, not only from Brett Hedigan, but also from other guests. And even from, we see it ourselves on television. These guys embrace it every single time. And they also, they're hungry for more. It's almost like a spoiled feeling. You won it one time and, you want to win it again. And you may never win it again. You never know. So it's very tough. Let's keep moving forward, fellas. With the, obviously NHL, we could talk about that all the time. The three of us are diehard Islanders fans. But now I want to speak to, as we were talking about earlier, in terms of the safety part, the NBA is currently in talks right now with ESPN Wide World of Sports. No shocker there because the NBA and ESPN have a extremely good relationship. Let's leave it at that. The PG term as well. But because of that relationship that they have, Disney World is now most likely going to be the place where they restart in the HP Center. Is that a possible, a good thing? Now let's compare it to the NHL. Basketball is completely different, and there's more contact than there is the NHL. And the reason why I say that, Nick, is because they are closer to each other. When they're guarding and playing defense or even playing offense, their faces are down together sometimes, and there is no shot in hell that you have from here all the way to here. There's a possibility, and this right here is not 6 feet, and I've seen it happen before. It's not. So with the NBA, it's very difficult. And in my opinion, I think it is an absolutely horrible idea to restart now, unless you have the needle to go right in and poof, you're a little bit better. Fellas, I need to hear your thoughts on this. I know Nick's thought, but I know he could.
Well, at the very least, the NBA can have people spread out on the benches and stuff. So at least they have the ability to have their coaches and their players spread out on the bench. There aren't rapid changes. There's nothing like that. You're right. On the court, it's going to be tough. There are going to be guys right on top of each other. There's going to be contact. It's every play right next to each other. But it's going to be the same as every other sport. They're going to have everyone tested the second they come in the building. Don't even come sit out sick if you're even a little bit off. They're going to just be incredibly careful about everything. But yeah,
too bad Nebraska didn't do that with Fred Hoiberg on March 11th. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Rudy, you know what's funny? I saw a comment. It was actually kind of mind-blowing. Rudy Gobert might have saved a ton of lives by what he did, because his incident brought so much attention to the fact that this was such a big thing that he might have actually caused an amazing amount of people to take way more caution. Sports leagues to close down, because I don't think any of them were closed when this first happened. So it could have been a huge chancellor for all this to be so much better because he was so careless in the moment. That incident might have actually saved a ton of lives. But it's like every other sport, like every other event, like anything else that's opening, beaches opening, towns opening. Everyone just has to be unbelievably careful. That's it. That's how it's going to be.
I just stop laughing to myself right now. You're saying basketball players are kind of on top of themselves. What was the movie? What might have been Meet the Parents, where Ben Stiller, his face got stuck in the guy's arm. For the jump shot.
Along came Polly with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yes.
That's all I'm thinking. Like, oh my God. Yeah, there's contact in basketball. Yeah.
May he rest in peace, by the way, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, since we've been last on, Al, I do apologize. The late Jerry Stiller, Arthur Spooner, Frank Costanza, may he rest in peace.
Serenity now.
Forever. Yes. Forever Serenity now and Festivus. Always. Al, continue. I just had to say that because to
piggyback off that, we actually had an Islanders game on December 23rd this year, and we actually did have a Festivus poll. We took a team ice crew picture on the ice. It was great. So
I had the best story about that.
We all wrestled Tyler until until he beat us. He never did. We still
Oh man, if Tyler's watching us right now, I can't wait to hear the comment or see the comment if he types it on YouTube.
Yeah, I think Tyler should have been there for that. Tyler was at all the Coliseum games, so the Festivus poll. I think basketball. I'm gonna change gears here for a second, just because it was something that with hockey that you mentioned it a little bit with baseball as far as the grounds crew and everything goes. I think that's actually really cool. If basketball is going to go, is it going to be every team at one arena?
I don't know because I believe that there are 2 or 3 arenas, and they're not big arenas. I know the HP Center is the biggest one on the Wide World of Sports campus.
Yeah.
Because they also have the Atlanta Braves have their spring training field there. They have, I think it's like 10 or 12 baseball fields and like 3 or 4 softball fields. So I don't know exactly what it was or what it is. But from what we see and hear, it's only going to be the one complex in Orlando.
Okay. Because I think basketball's got a huge advantage with that, because if you could probably do 2 arenas and have maybe, what does the NCAA tournament have? It goes 4 games for 12 hours those first 2 days.
Yes.
4 games at an arena for 12 hours. So, because the court, it just needs to be cleaned. And, I don't know what the process is of cleaning a basketball court. I do know from my time at the Barclays Center and even at the Prudential Center when the Nets played there for 2 years, and Seton Hall's there, the court really didn't get touched all that much. It just was kind of just don't walk on it. It's clean, and that's the end of it. What the problem the NHL is going to have, and this is kind of, they said my area here is the ice. That you lose a ton of ice every single game. I mean, I know they do run the Olympics in, I think, 2 arenas. I don't know if the men and the women switch. I can't remember how it's done with the Olympics, and I really have to talk to somebody about that, because that's what they're going to have to do. It's proven, but I think that's a huge advantage for basketball, where the playing surface doesn't really need much maintenance, whereas baseball needs to be manicured. Like, I mean, the Yankee Stadium, the YMCA guys have to be at least 6 feet apart, right? When they're doing their 7th inning stretch thing, that's going to be complex.
Now, baseball doesn't care about quality of field. They play on some freaking nonsense field in London that wasn't right. They play in a freaking cornfield. The baseball doesn't care. They can play on the same one 7 times. There's no integrity in that sport. Let's not get carried away here.
Yeah. And then, but hockey, we do care in hockey. How about that? I'll tell you this. Cat's out of the bag on this one. We care. It's just something that is. I've had conversations with my partner Mike Pasaki, he's my manager and I said former driving partner. He's now in the office doing paperwork and stuff now. How are they going to do this? You lose about a quarter of an inch of ice every game. You go 3 games a day. You need staff there to work overnight to get that ice back to some type of safe playing level. That thing goes under an inch, you're in trouble. Or another 3/4 of an inch, you're in trouble. So anyway, but I think back to the original point. I think basketball's got a huge advantage. And I think I don't want to say it's the easiest thing because of that, but like I said, you space out the guys on the bench, and there's no Ben Stiller incidents.
Right. Yeah, no, it's tough because you know what? So the way it is 3 arenas in Orlando, which is good. So you figure it's most likely going to be a similar scenario like the NCAA play, like March Madness, like the March Madness tournament.
Yeah.
Where it's going to be most likely, you figure 4 games each in each building. And everyone's probably going to have a separate entrance, separate exit. Like I said, the one thing that I think about, is, and I'm sure these sports leagues, every single one of them, they have a little bit more knowledge than we do. I can almost guarantee it. Maybe just if it's not a lot more, it's at least a little bit more knowledge that they're hearing from the government or wherever that they don't want, us to hear, if it's negative, if it's positive, whatever it may be, panics, whatever. I just consider, with everything that we've heard now as the public, I consider basketball being almost like these players being like guinea pigs. And I hate to say it because the way it is that on the court, we are going to see the evolution of the way that the way that these sports leagues, indoor sports leagues, can handle this virus. Can they still play while this is still going on in the air? How can they do this? To me, I consider basketball and the way that the NBA is doing it, I understand they have to make their money. There's a lot going on here. And again, I am all about the business side of things where money is key, but also, again, the safety is number one. And in basketball, in my opinion, one that covers it, one that gets paid to cover it and work in the business. It's very careless, in my opinion, because hockey, you can get away with it. Basketball, I think they are a bunch of guinea pigs out there, and they are going to be, there's lives that at some point we're going to see something. I don't think it's going to be bad. I don't want to be negative. I just think it's going to be very tough to conclude a full season in the NBA without at least one little problem. Al, you had your hand raised. Don't have your hand raised, by the way. Please, just talk. Just talk. What do you think this is? Yeah, just talk.
Just to go with this, if you look behind me, like I said, my one of my passions is scripted sports. WWE never stopped. Right. AEW never stopped, and now you got that's like whatever. They're on top of each other, Vince, whatever. Okay, well, we'll talk to Dana White then, because UFC's back. They had 2 shows, at one pay-per-view, and they had one I think last Saturday night. The heavyweight fight, the guy that lost, I can't remember the guy's name.
It's all good, yeah.
Overeem and somebody else, and but the trainers are on top of each other. The referees, the fighters. There's ways, that's what I'm saying. I guess basketball but it's not the team sport. I think that's maybe the point that where this is all going to be different, because you have to have guys on the bench and you have coaches and whatnot, but you have a training crew, you have a pit crew. It's NASCAR's back. So there are ways. I'm sure if everybody, I don't know who the leader of NASCAR is, but if you sit him down with Dana White and Vince McMahon and Donald Trump and whoever the elected officials, and I'm sure there's answers. Like I said, you're exactly right. There's people that are a lot smarter, at least than me. I know there's a ton of people smarter than me that can figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Nick, do you have any thoughts on it, or I think here?
I just want to piggyback one thing quick.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to play 4 NBA games in one day in the same arena. The definition of clean pre-COVID is very different than the definition of clean post-COVID.
Right,
They're
that
going to have
too.
to go in and disinfect everything
yeah,
in
that's
clean
fair.
games, the locker rooms, the court, the benches, anywhere someone sits, the rims, the backboards, anything touched by anybody. It's going to take longer to maintain between games and make sure everything is settled and correct and clean and pure and everyone's tested on their way in and out. So there's going to be a lot to do. I think 3 games might end up being the max for a day. And even that's going to be tough. One at 12, one at like 4, and one at 8 or so might be the way they end up going at it, because it's going to be a lot different. There's going to be a lot of regulation they have to do to make sure everybody can be in that same building 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 different sets of people a day. It's going to be a lot.
Right.
Like a lot of traffic. Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, but I think time may fly even quicker, not only when you're having fun because everyone's going to embrace this return, but especially because we have to take that extreme precaution with the with COVID going around and going on. And yeah, like I said, and I completely agree with Nick. I do believe, I wouldn't be surprised, less is more, and that's the way it's going to be with the NBA for sure. Fellas, let's get into a little bit more positive news here. Well, actually, no, let's not, because, well, Al, we still got you for 10 more minutes. And, let's.
Nothing positive then, Joe. It's
Yeah, listen, yeah.
Let's go.
Well, I will say this. There's 2020 is a year that is been, or has been very, very detrimental, not only to health, but it still, things continue to keep on rolling in terms of cyberbullying, in terms of bullying. And the reason why we bring this up is because a wrestler in Japan, I believe, Al,
Yes.
22-year-old, and her name was the exact name again.
It was Hannah Sakura.
Right. Yeah. So 22-year-old up and coming wrestler from Japan passed away suddenly due to threats, not only threats, but also continuous bullying remarks on social media, saying that she wasn't good, she was never going to get far. And from everyone here at the Eastern Observer, we do send our condolences over to her family over in Japan, because, again, as we've said, cyberbullying is just, there's zero tolerance for it. And I really hope that those people that did do that, or cause her to take her life unexpectedly and suddenly during this horrible year, and just to make matters worse, please just get a life, honestly. And I hope that eventually vindication will be coming to you. And also, in addition to a little bit more negative news, WWE star, if I'm not mistaken, let's just get the exact name right. I remember Al and Tyler were speaking about it on the Essential Wrestling podcast. Chad Gaspard, his body was found washed up on the shore at Venice Beach in outer Los Angeles. And Al, you're a WWE guy. There's a little bit of a crossover, if you will. I know both Nick and I really are not, or not really are not, period.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on the loss of Gaspard and the loss to the WWE family here, in that little, as we said, Eastern Observer crossover here.
Yeah. So with, like I said, I can tell you both stories real quick. What do I got? I got 10 minutes. I can tell you both stories real quick, just from what I hear. This is what see. Before we even get into it, Tyler and I, we're not big. When I say we don't really believe anything, a lot of the things that are mentioned on the internet. This is going to happen. This guy's getting a push. This guy, it's whatever. Vince changes his mind. We don't listen to it. We don't want to report on it. These two situations, though, they seem to be a little more accurately reported. So first with Hannah over in Japan.
And her name, I'm sorry, Hannah Kimura. Hannah Kimura.
Yeah,
yes.
So Hannah was on, she was 22 years old. She was on a reality show where it was kind of like a Real World type deal, where they put 6 people in the house, complete strangers, and the cameras are on, no script, whatever. And I guess Hannah was on the show, and she was wrestling for a promotion called Stardom,
Yes.
And I think, and I could be wrong on this. I want to say it's an all-female Japan wrestling promotion, because the New Japan wrestling promotion that they have over there is men only, and I think Stardom is their female affiliate. Now, each year on January 4th, is on the same day every year, regardless of the day of the week, they have an event in the Tokyo Dome called the Wrestle Kingdom. And it's pretty much their version of WrestleMania. It's 80,000 people in the Tokyo Dome, huge stage, entrances, pyro. It's the works, and it's a really great show. And I guess she was scheduled to appear on it. And her costume designer shrunk her outfit. And apparently, I guess on this show, she kind of blew up at the costume designer in front of the cameras. So that's why she was being cyberbullied. And people were harping on her for, cut this guy a break, but you gotta be understanding that she's 22 years old in the biggest match and the biggest show of her entire life. And, it's kind of like going on, I don't know what the biggest show on Broadway is, but your costumes shrunk, so, and I'm
Hamilton.
sure it was, so that's where I guess she was tweeting. She did put out a tweet. It was actually in Japanese. Somebody did translate it.
A very moving post, by the way. And they said, and there's a lot of rumors going around, and it I don't know if it was confirmed, but it was also reported. I believe there was Fox News, Yahoo said that it was almost basically a suicide note.
Yeah, that's what it was. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live in a life where I'm not loved. And actually, so that was tweeted. Let's say it was nighttime in Japan, but it was noon over here. And two of her friends that she used to wrestle with, who are currently signed with WWE, named Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, they saw this and they called back home and get over there now. She needs help. And they were too late. So apparently, when she hit send, then it's.
Well, you can schedule tweets.
22 years old. They got everything. I'm sorry, Nick. It's just 22 years old. She's got everything, and it's awful.
Yeah, it is. And exactly to Nick's point too. Yes, you 100% can schedule a tweet. There's no doubt about it. You can. It's just, you think about, you think of it where, we don't know the exact specifics yet. Exactly what Nick said, you could schedule it. We don't know how long she was unconscious for, how long she, has been passed on for. We don't know. We'll have more information on that. We'll get it to you when we hear it, when we see it from the respective news outlets. But as I did say, it's a very tragic time, in the wrestling world, because, and in addition to, she was also an actress as well. She starred in the Netflix reality show Terrace House, where six strangers.
That was the show.
Right. Yeah. Where six strangers in Tokyo are, quote, looking for love while living under the same room. I don't know what kind of show that is, but okay. Well, that's, like I said, that's where we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
But extremely difficult. And then I want to hear about the WWE Chad Gaspard.
Chad Gaspard was formerly of a tag team called Crime Time, which it was a fun little gimmick where they would they were from Brooklyn and sold merch out of the back of a truck. It was comical. But he was good, regardless of that. But apparently he went swimming in the Atlantic. I don't know if the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. They were down in Florida. He went swimming. Him and his son and a group of people, and him and his son got caught in a riptide. The lifeguards went out, and Shad get him first. So they took the son back first, and then Shad disappeared for 3 days, and they found him. They found him washed up. So he went out probably in the most honorable way a father could go out. He saved the life of his son.
Yeah. Again, all condolences to both the Kimura and the Gaspard family from everyone here at the Blackjack Media Networks. The moment again you see it's the negativity. It's this year thus far, and we're only 5.5 months in. Surprisingly, we're halfway through with 2020. And, there hasn't been much positivity.
It's only half over. Oh my God.
Right. Right. I know. Right. Exactly. And the craziest part is, I spoke about this with a couple of people off air, And I said, it's crazy that March 12th was more than 2 months ago, because it felt like almost a year ago,
Yeah.
the last time we've seen sports. And it seems to me, and originally speaking about with hockey, right, going back with that, I said to myself, well, it's 24 teams. I think it'd be pretty cool to see something different. But at the same slowly coming back. And we were talking about earlier with NASCAR, Bundesliga, and everything along those lines. And because, again, soccer is not my, not my sport, but I'm getting there, Nick. But it was difficult because obviously you see it on the main channel. NASCAR was there. All right. I used to watch that very religiously with my father many years ago. So I wanted to see what the deal was, and, just to see, for your mental health and everything, it's there. And then I think about with hockey, it's, will I watch this? Will I do whatever? And it's, again, the reason why I bring this up is because going back to Hannah Kimura with the cyberbullying and everything along those lines, I get that things are so bad in your life right now. And again, I don't want to make this a therapy session for our viewers. Do something else. Watch Netflix. Watch Hulu. Go for a run. If you don't like it, if you don't like life or do anything else, do something else about it. Don't ruin someone else's because you don't like yours. It's a disgrace. And I'm sorry I had to say that, because that comes from the heart. And being a recipient of bullying too, it's just there's no tolerance for it. And again, we'll end it there. And I know everyone has their issues and everything, but it had to be said. 3 minutes to go until Al's gone, but I do want to start off with this one thing here, because Al was saying obviously there's a whole bunch of wrestling stuff here. Al, PWP Pick'em, ProWrestlingPick'em.com. That's where this broadcast is
We need
presented.
to try to find a way to get like a graphic or something to go across the bottom, just like a nameplate.
Yeah, that's say that is pretty good, right? I think it has to be thought about. So episode number 4 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast will be part 1 of a double header on Tuesday night, because that will be Al's show starting at 6 p.m. And then at 8 p.m., we're going to have Zoom interview series of the Primetime Rundown with College Hoops Digest contributor Jake Zimmer. So we will have both Al's show, we'll have my show as well on Tuesday, Memorial Day Tuesday, or the day after Memorial Day, rather. So it's going to be a fun Tuesday evening for all of us. Al, before you go, I want to bring this up, because this is where we're going to segue into once you head out with me and Nick. And it's going to be the NFL. And there were some talks just a couple hours ago where a specific Patriots player, not being named, on ESPN came out and said that new quarterback Jarrett Stidham will not be starting on week 1. Well, wow. That is quite a bold prediction or a statement. Do you believe, Al, with your Patriots for the last 2 minutes, what are your thoughts on Jarrett Stidham starting and this player saying such a statement?
Well, he's my quarterback, right? I'm going to quote Terrell Owens here. That's my quarterback. So I think just by judging of what he did off of last year's preseason, I think last year he kind of had like a Dak Prescott-ish preseason when he made the preseason Hall of Fame team. He played phenomenal. I think he had 1 or 2 passes last season coming in for Brady. I remember one specifically. He got picked off by the Jets, and Brady was back in on the next play.
It was a pick 6, Jamal Adams.
Yeah, he threw the pick 6 that let the Jets cover the spread. So I know a lot of people were upset with Jarrett Stidham at this point, but I can't imagine him not being a starting quarterback, because they didn't get anybody. Brian Hoyer's not the answer. He's a safe backup. Because Brian Hoyer's been in the system, he can teach Stidham, keep mentoring him, in a way that is productive. As far as this unnamed source, I want to interrupt you for a quick second, Al. I actually just double checked where it came from. And it was reported by ESPN, and it was actually on television by one man which you are very familiar with,
current Miami Dolphins linebacker Rob Ninkovich.
Okay, so Ninkovich came out of retirement?
No.
No.
I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. I got. Oh my gosh. Another.
Like, wow, I missed that.
Another blemish. Another blemish. I'm thinking of Kyle Van Noy. I'm sorry.
Oh, Kyle Van Noy.
Yes. Yeah. Rob Ninkovich. Yes, he is retired. I believe on First Take or Get Up on ESPN a couple of days ago, and that was said.
So Kyle Van Noy said Stidham's not going to be the quarterback.
I'm sorry. No, it was Rob Ninkovich. Yes, it was him, and he did come out and say it in an appearance on ESPN a couple of days ago. Yes.
Well, that's Ninkovich's job, right? He's an analyst now, right? Like that's.
Well, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree on it?
I think he will be I completely disagree. If Belichick's dog, I'm sorry, if Belichick's dog that we needed a quarterback when we were drafting, we would have got one. I feel like it's a very Belichick I trust situation. We could have got Teddy Bridgewater. We could have got I know Cam's not the answer. Jameis Winston's not the answer. Andy Dalton would have been a nice fit. Rivers would have been decent, but if Belichick thought that Stidham wasn't the long-term answer, then he would have fixed it. Belichick's very win now. I know I just said long-term, but like if Belichick is he wants to win now. That's the point I'm trying to say. I'm thinking faster than I'm talking right now. I just don't. No, Stidham will be out there week 1. Bottom line, I can't imagine him not doing anything if they didn't want him to be out there. Brian Hoyer is not the answer.
Nick.
I think the only thing that's going to come in the way of Stidham starting is the fact that the offseason could be very wonky. It could be different. He's going to have a hard time getting the reps that a starting quarterback would normally get, rapport with receivers, learning the playbook, one-on-one time with Belichick, his offensive coordinator. Those kind of things are going to be a lot harder to come by. Not being able to throw to these guys is going to put a major hamper on it. It might make more sense. Belichick may choose to lean on a veteran quarterback who doesn't need the same type of reps, doesn't need the same type of teaching to go out there and at least do a mediocre job and hold the fort down for a few weeks while Stidham gets his feet a little more wet on the practice field. So we have to see how the offseason goes. And if that would be the only thing to me that would get somebody else in the driver's seat for playing quarterback for the Patriots, or by unbelievable surprise if Cam Newton ends up healthy and signs with them and plays instead. But you talked about some of these other options. He didn't have the choice. They couldn't sign Teddy Bridgewater or Phillip Rivers because they didn't have the cap space for it. This is a team up against the cap. Brady left them with a massive dead money charge when he left. It's like $13 million of dead cap that the Patriots had to deal with. And they chose to try and re-sign their defensive free agents instead of using that on a replacement quarterback. So Belichick might also be thinking, for 1 year, we're going to see what we have in Stidham, and then we can really attack the position next year. And then the drafting situation, like you said, he might have drafted one if he thought there was an answer there, but there was no guy available that was going to be able to play for them week 1 that they had a shot at drafting. Anybody that they picked in the draft, there was never going to get thrown in ahead of Stidham or Hoyer, especially with a weird offseason. So the only thing that you can say is they didn't think that maybe a guy like Jordan Love was a long-term answer, so they passed on it. There was no quarterback they had a shot at getting that was going to be able to play for them week 1. So
no, it was Jordan Love and Jake Fromm was the only other guy that was available, right? He's not
Jake Fromm and who was the other quarterback? Both of them lasted to like round 5 or 6. Yeah. Everybody was passing on those other guys that were like supposedly borderline earlier picks. So I don't know. It's hard to read.
I just gotta hope that the year that Stidham sat in these quarterback meetings with Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels, he sees that what needs to be done. That says he learned. He had 1 year with Tom Brady and Josh, everything together, and he knows what he needs to do. He's seen what needs to be done, and let's just hope now he can. He's got the physical ability to do it, and I believe that he does.
Yeah, I personally believe it's going to be a weird offseason where I believe that if we don't even know when the season's going to begin, and you now have to groom Jarrett Stidham to be your starter, and I personally believe it's going to be Brian Hoyer, honestly, coming in to start if there is no Cam Newton or no free agent acquisition. Nick, you hit the nail right on the head. $13.5 million in dead cap money for Tom Brady. That is a humongous charge, and that goes against the cap. So now really you're only working with just a little bit under $190 million in cap room this, for or a total cap rather for this upcoming year. A lot of tough decisions in New England, and the reason why we have to bring them up is because they are actually, in my opinion, must-watch television. Why? Because it's the unknown factor that I think is going to get a lot of people to say, well, let's see what Tom Brady in New England looks like. Could it be a team that we like eventually? Could it be, a team where we don't hate them much anymore because we couldn't stand Tom Brady or we couldn't stand the Patriots? I don't know about that. I know Nick is definitely not on board with that. And I know Al, being a Patriots fan himself, definitely disagrees with the two of us. But Al, I know you have to go, so I'll let you go.
Yes, we have double AEW All Elite Wrestling Double or Nothing. They're pretty much their year anniversary. This is pretty much the start of year 2 for All Elite Wrestling, starting tonight with their pay-per-view All or Nothing. We will be reporting on the results this Tuesday on the Essential Wrestling Podcast, 6 o'clock, followed by the Zoom interview series. But I do want I'm going to put this in my calendar now. It's going to be Monday, September 14th. I'm going to be back on this show after Jared Stidham rips apart Tua and the Miami Dolphins. I'm just going to sit back here like this, and we're going to replay this episode. Oh, Hoyer's going to start. Oh, Hoyer's going to... I'm just going to sit here like this.
I just put it out there as a possibility. I didn't say definite. He said definitely, so he's the one you have beef with.
You have to point up, Nick. I'm
on my screen. You're over here. My bad.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for again having me on. I said hopefully Tyler gets well soon with whatever he's doing. And as we say in the Essential Wrestling Podcast, actually with that same WWE, best of luck in your future endeavors, guys.
There you go, Al. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Primetime Rundown, and enjoy your evening. So, Nick, now with it just being the two of us here, it's the two of us like old times. The first I think it was 20 episodes. I think it was me and you or something like that.
Not episode 1.
Okay, well then how about this? Then from episode 2 all the way to episode 21 in that range.
Yeah, so roughly in that area.
So that's 19 episodes, and now this what I guess mark episode number 20. Not that bad. So, ladies and gentlemen, now it's just Nick Partain and myself. We are missing Tyler Adelle here on this Saturday evening. For those that are staying tuned in, that were here for Al Carl, Essential Wrestling Podcast co-host. That's Nick Partain. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for staying here on this gloomy Saturday evening with us here on the Primetime Rundown on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. This backdrop here, ladies and gentlemen, will be in Nick's house, or maybe it is the size of Nick's house, as he said earlier in the show. That most likely will be up in the next couple of weeks. So, we'll see. It's going to be a great, or actually, let me rephrase that. Get a good view of Nick's kitchen right now, because you might not see it ever again. With that being said, let's continue. Let's continue our talk with the NFL, Nick, and some of the free agents that are out there right now. Logan Ryan, Everson Griffin, Clay Matthews, Jason Peters, the aforementioned Cam Newton, Steven Gostkowski. Logan Ryan, Nick, there's numerous talks where your New York Jets would be a possibility of going, or him signing a deal worth about $10 million, or that's what he wanted from a team. But then the Giants, there was talks where the Giants may want him because of the whole DeAndre Baker situation. And now there's talks that he might be innocent. So where are we going to see Logan Ryan end up? Is he going to be on one side of MetLife Stadium, or could he be on the other, or in a completely different city?
Who knows? He's the best cornerback available. I'm sure a lot of teams are vying for him. There were reports out that the Jets were very close. They were making an offer. Manish Mehta reported that they were basically on the brink of signing him. And then all of a sudden this quieted way down. Maybe other teams came in, upped their bids. Maybe he's thinking about where he wants to be, where he wants to play. I mean, he makes sense on almost every roster, because while he played mostly slot last year, he's played outside corner before. So any team that needs cornerback help could sign him, and a league that's shifting towards passing, everyone basically needs a cornerback at this point. So it's going to be whoever I would assume pays him the most money or a situation he wants to play. The Jets make sense. They don't really have many experienced corners on their roster. They're definitely weak at that point. Giants make sense because of Baker. That's obviously another spot. Both teams have the cap space to pay him a lot in year one. I don't assume this is going to be a multi-year deal for Logan Ryan. Maybe that bidding has gotten to that point. Maybe that's why things are changing. Teams are offering him more than 1 year guaranteed. Who knows? Like I said, anybody could be in for his services. There are tons of places that could be fits. I obviously would love to have him on the Jets. He's a good player, a solid corner, can play inside, can play outside. The Jets personally have Brian Poole, who they just re-signed this year, who was an excellent slot corner last year, so he'd probably play mostly outside for the Jets. So maybe that's why he's backing out. Maybe he wants to play the slot. Maybe he'd prefer a place at the slot. But yeah, I'm disappointed that when it was really close to the Jets, it didn't go through. So if something tells me something happened or somebody else came in and made better offers or things are changing, who knows where he's going to end up. But he's a guy who could end up anywhere.
And Logan Ryan is in my opinion, a very underrated cornerback because in New England, he was overshadowed by the McCourtys of the world, Duron Harmon of the world, Malcolm Butler as well, who was actually his teammate last year in Tennessee. And then he signed in Tennessee. Really, again, I thought he was pretty decent. What he did in New England. And now with him being the top corner on the market currently, obviously with Byron Jones being off a long time ago back in March, it's difficult to think that this man is going to be getting $10 million. And that's what he wanted. Either 10 million would be the basement for him. And in my opinion, well, Logan, go elsewhere. And when I say go elsewhere, you're not going to get $10 million unless, in my opinion, you're going to be replacing someone via injury or something with a humongous catastrophe happens or a team is so desperate. And right now, I feel like the market has almost dried up a little bit. And I think that it has to slowly moisten up a bit. I don't think you're going to get $10 million. And it's very similar, Nick, to the whole Devonta Freeman deal, where he wanted a minimum of $4 million or potentially something along those lines, whether it be 4 million or even higher. Devonta Freeman has such a terrible injury history with Atlanta, where he barely played last year and the year before. And he wanted to back up Seattle was going to sign him, but instead went with Carlos Hyde. Why? Because of the money. And a lot of these players, with the market slowly being dried up amidst this whole pandemic, teams are obviously still looking, such as the Jets just signing Joe Flacco, which I think was a fantastic signing, which other people, and I've seen Jets fans say, why? But then you say to yourself, well, I don't know, you kind of need a solid backup because look at David Fales, look at Luke Falk last year, God almighty. And Joe Flacco also won a Super Bowl not too long ago. But with that being said, going back to Logan Ryan, the market's dried up. It's going to take time. He's not going to get $10 million. And exactly what you said. Could he be a slot? Could he play on the inside? Could he play on the outside? Where is he best? He's pretty versatile. And that's humongous. And I think that definitely could drive up the price. Where though is the issue in my opinion. And honestly, I don't know. Could the Jets, obviously the Jets could use him, but we'll see what happens in MetLife, especially with DeAndre Baker. But also you have to realize too, Seattle could be another place too, because don't forget the other person to be a part of that whole robbery scandal was Seattle's Quentin Dunbar. So maybe Seattle could be a place for Logan Ryan. We don't know. If those two come back, will they be suspended by the NFL? We don't know how it's going to be. Nick, where do you think Logan Ryan could end up? Just a random prediction.
I'm going to predict he does end up on the Jets. I think they have the cap space that they could bid a decent amount. I think 10 million is actually reasonable. If someone signed him for 10 million, I'd understand it. But I see your argument that with it taking this long, the market shouldn't be that big for him, you would think. But if he got a 1-year deal for 10 million, it really doesn't matter. It's not like it's a big cap charge going forward for a team. So if a team has the cap space and you want him, go out and pay him. You're not missing out on anything. So that's the kind of move I would accept. I would understand, even for the Jets' sake, 1 year, 10 million. I'd be okay with that. He's going to ask big, and teams are vying for his services. So there is a chance that he could get the money up that high. Devonta Freeman is a completely different story. Logan Ryan is a starting caliber player who is solid. Devonta Freeman just came off an injury-riddled season. He's a running back to the least premier position in the league outside of kicker and punter, and he's not healthy. So there's so many other factors working against Freeman that guaranteed the fact that he wasn't going to get a job for a while.
Yeah, and he thought, also Devonta Freeman thought that he'd be able to get the bare minimum of $4 million, but also he's also come out publicly and said that he's willing to sit out all of 2020 if he doesn't have a well, Devonta, same exact thing as what I said with Logan Ryan. I'm sure Logan probably will be able to maybe, soften those contract demands. But if Devonta Freeman doesn't, hey, listen, I'm more than willing to not see you at all play because you don't deserve more than $4 million to be a backup. And that's exactly what you're going to be. That's exactly what he's going to be because there is not a single spot in the NFL that I could think of where he would be used as a running back one. That market, I believe, also has dried up too. And exactly the conversation that Nick and I always have is that running backs are slowly becoming, the kickers and the punters almost of, like the contracts or just the least. What was the word that you used, Nick, before?
They're the least premier, least valuable.
Least valuable. Yeah.
It's just nobody's going to pay an past 30 injury-prone running back $4 million. That's absurd.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But I do believe, though, someone that could potentially be paid, and it would be on a contender. We have not seen it yet, but also, again, I think the market in whole right now has stopped. But I think someone who will be returning to Minnesota, or possibly not, is defensive end Everson Griffin, who has made his time in the NFL thus far pretty memorable, and also has made the opposing quarterback, made his life pretty miserable. Everson Griffin is one, in my opinion, that I'd love to have on my team, Nick. What about you?
Yeah, he's a guy that has never gotten a ton of fanfare, a ton of headlines, a ton of attention as a great player. Every year he puts up close to 10 sacks. Very consistent. He's a 4-3 pass rushing defensive end. He might be able to play into a 3-4 like outside linebacker kind of role. Who knows? But he's going to be a preferred guy. Put him on the outside. Let him rush the passer. He's 32 years old now, so he's probably not getting a big contract offer. Like you said, a lot of the markets have dried up. Teams have drafted already. Nobody came running for his services after the fact. But every team in the NFL should be at least a little interested because pass rushers are such a valuable commodity in any way, shape, or form. So he should be somebody that absolutely can take his time and wait and find the right situation, the right offer. He's going to end up playing somewhere. He's going to end up playing a big role, and he's going to end up producing more than people think because every year this guy goes out and produces. One of the most consistent pass rushers in the league. Not always elite, but consistent. He's a guy who's going to get pressure on the quarterback. He's going to do his job. He's a veteran. He's stayed healthy, checks all the boxes that you want in a player you want. So contending teams for sure are going to be all over him. I heard Cardinals as being a name, and that's a place that he should be really happy to go to. Ascending team, good young coach, great young quarterback, and most importantly, Chandler Jones rushing on the other side. That man has led the league in sacks this past year. He's arguably the best pass rusher in football right now. So if Griffin wants to play on the other side, you're not going to get as much attention. It's going to be very similar to Minnesota, where Danielle Hunter was getting all the attention on the other side as the elite pass rusher for that team. So if he goes to another place where he can be the number 2, put up great numbers, not get as much attention, and be on a team that could be better than people think this year, that's a spot that makes a lot of sense. But I'm sure there are other teams that are in the bidding. A team like the Giants didn't really come out of this draft for the pass rusher. They could use one. The Jets have needed a pass rusher for 20 years now. They could absolutely use him, try and find a way. Greg Williams plays some 4-3 within his system. They play a lot of mixed fronts, a lot of mixed sets. He always throws curveballs at opponents, so he'd get plenty of snaps in the Jets in a pass rushing role. It's all about where he wants to go. This could be an Andy Dalton situation where Dalton took much less money and a backup role just because he wanted to play in his home state. We could see something like that. A guy at this stage of his career just take, location is more important than anything else to him.
Right. Yeah. And you think of the whole thing, Nick, with Andy Dalton as well. But then you also speak about Chandler Jones and speak about Arizona, because I personally believe that Chandler Jones doesn't get enough attention either because of where he plays, because in Arizona, no pun intended, but it's really dry out there. Okay. So with that being said, but seriously though, all joking aside, due to Chew, the media is not, out there a lot because unless it's really a Super Bowl and unless it's all of a sudden the Kurt Warner era again, 2008 when they made it to the Super Bowl. Ever since then, yeah, okay, they went up high with Carson Palmer. They were right there. They were right there, but could not get past Ron Rivera's Carolina Panthers, Super Bowl 50. They were that close, but couldn't do it. Now it's slowly heading up. Still, again, Griffin, you could play right under there, and maybe, who knows, maybe sign a 1-year deal and cash out. But at 32 years old, it's not going to happen. I think he'd be an amazing number one still, but I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's so tough to, he's not going to get that big money deal, and I don't know if he's really looking for that. And for those Minnesota Vikings fans that remember Jared Allen, big defensive end. He was the face of the franchise, of your franchise for many, many years. He came around, him and Anthony Barr, towards the end of Jared Allen's career. I think it was year number 1 of Anthony Barr's career. Those two played together. I believe it was for 1 year. Absolutely surreal stuff. And I think that Everson Griffin would be, it would be not, I don't think it would be good if Minnesota did not offer a 1-year deal, friendly contract that would bring him back.
Well, I don't know what kind of cap space they have. They had a lot of cap issues this year. They had to let a lot of starting caliber players go. They're still trying to negotiate with Anthony Harris to get an extension after they tagged him. So they got a lot going on there. They might just not have the money to be able to pay him anything near what he's worth. Like, he's going to get not like a 1-year, $1 million deal for Everson Griffin. He's going to get more than that. And if a team just can't afford it, they're not even going to reach out because they don't want to insult the man. They're not going to say, hey, we'll take you back if you play for no money. It's like, he's going to get a deal with some kind of money on it. That's why he's getting attention from a lot of different teams. And the Vikings weren't able to retain him probably for that reason. They have decisions to make, and he's getting older. So it's the kind of guy that naturally is going to end up getting let go. Right.
I look at a team, like the Giants, but can he play that 3-4? I don't think we've seen it during the Mike Zimmer era. Before that, I don't remember exactly. But
they've been 4-3 for a while now. When they had the Williams Wall, those two big giant defensive tackles, they've been a 4-3 team for a very long time. I don't think he's ever played a pass rushing outside linebacker spot. But at the very least, if he went to a team playing 3-4, he could be a situational pass rusher. When they put more defensive backs in the field and they go with a normal 4-man front, it might be able to just pin his ears back and pass rush. Who knows? We're going to see what happens. Yeah. He's going to definitely look around for the right situation.
Yeah, I can see two places being one, Indianapolis being a dark horse, and also people may not like this thought, but the LA Chargers. They play a 4-3. It's possible. Things aren't going well out in Los Angeles right now for both the Rams and the Chargers. The Rams right now are projected to finish dead last in the NFC West, in a loaded NFC West, which is crazy. The LA Chargers are also projected to finish dead last in the AFC West. Who knows? A lot of speculation, but I personally believe that it would be those two that could potentially, come up out of the woodwork if that is, if those two teams would need someone along those lines. And then you look at finally one last NFL free agent, Nick. Forget Stephen Gostkowski because, you spoke about, the premier kickers. I think it's past Stephen Gostkowski's time for sure. But I will say, though, is that still one of the most consistent kickers in the NFL. He was injured last year. He only played, I believe it was like 4 or 5 games until I think he tore his ACL or had a lower body injury. I don't remember the exact injury that he had, but still, I personally believe that Stephen Gostkowski could still get, he will find a job. It's just a matter of time. Where that is, I don't know. And I think just to bring up the name is big because you have a guy like Gostkowski who followed or was the successor to Hall of Fame kicker or soon-to-be Hall of Famer Adam Vinatieri, who, by the way, is also a free agent and is still talking about coming back 25 years later or for a 25th season. That would be something if we see the gray-haired freak come back and kick some more field goals. That would be pretty cool for either Indianapolis or another team. Last player that I do want to say, Nick, is Clay Matthews, 4-3 linebacker, someone that is who is heavily touted in locker rooms in terms of a leader. The man's a freak. And we don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly because he really is a freak. On the field, off the he has a fantastic leadership, and I think that wherever he goes or whatever team may want him, it would be for his leadership. And I think that the market for him would not be will not be sooner rather than later. It's going to be a later type scenario if there is an injury. What are your thoughts on Clay Matthews?
Well, he's currently fighting the Rams over a grievance of money he thinks they owe him. He had a bonus, I think, that he deserved or something, and the Rams aren't paying it. There's some odd thing going on there. So he's got a lot on his plate right now. But Clay Matthews, this guy's barely a starter, if a starter at all. Like you said, he'd be more of a locker room presence more than anything. I could see a situation where he doesn't even get signed, where he ends up just retiring. Like, he just hasn't been very good the last few years. He's moved to inside linebacker. He kind of lost his zip as a pass rusher, so he's been more of a tackler type of role, but I just don't see a team at this point giving him a job. If he hasn't been signed by now, I'd be shocked if he ends up even on a roster, to be honest.
Really? Even for locker room presence, even just to be that 53rd man.
Maybe a lot of teams like to have that spot for rookies or young guys, guys that have been on the practice squad. They want to get fresh bodies in there, guys with more upside. You know what you're getting from Clay Matthews. Maybe a very, very heavy veteran-heavy win now team might want him, kind of like the Rams went out last year and signed him because they wanted another, guy to push them over the top. But I just don't think the play on the field is enough anymore to grant him roster spot. I don't think you're going to use that spot for a coach.
Yeah, I look at to be completely honest with you, Nick, I look at a team, and this may blow some minds away, but I look at a team like the Buffalo Bills. And the reason why is because they just lost Lorenzo Alexander. I believe it was Lorenzo Alexander they just lost due to retirement. And another guy who has not been recognized for his on-the-field play because of where he plays in Western New York. I think that could be a landing spot for him if they need a defensive coach, or not even a defensive coach, but a player/coach that could eventually lead these young and up-and-coming guys, where it would be a cheap deal, Nick. And I think that you look at Buffalo's numbers right now, and they have about $19 million in cap space. A lot of their boxes are checked off. And I think that it would be, in my opinion, for a guy like this to come in and to potentially be a leader on and off the field, and even if he is a team or, he is a team player, the Bills are set, and I can't believe that I'm saying this, but they are the new AFC East favorites coming into this upcoming season. They are. The Patriots are no longer that. The Jets still have some work. The Dolphins are all on paper. So that leaves the Bills. They're looking to host their first playoff game in almost 25 years. I think that Clay Matthews could potentially find a home there, and I think it would be in Buffalo, if anything. But I will agree with Nick here. If that is not the place, then there is no more Clay Matthews in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward here. So arrests this week, as we did say, speaking of Buffalo, first-round pick this past year and defensive end Ed Oliver was arrested for DWI. He had an open beer bottle on his seat. He was slurring words. It was an absolute disaster for him. So that is something else to be watching for with Buffalo. As we did say earlier, Seattle and New York Giants cornerbacks Quentin Dunbar and Deandre Baker arrested and charged with armed robbery. We were going to speak about that last week, but we had an unofficial bye week last week. So those two are now out on bail from what we've seen. And they both have said that they are innocent. We'll see. That's what they all say. But who knows? We don't know. There's a lot going on here. So let's keep it moving forward. Nick, this is our time because in roughly about 2.5 weeks, we would be getting set for the third Triple Crown race, being the Belmont Stakes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the third crown of the Triple Crown races, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness Stakes, and the Belmont Stakes. The Belmont Stakes will be taking place, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's June 20th now, here at Belmont in New York on Long Island, and will now be the first jewel of the crown. It will be replacing the Kentucky Derby as the number one for this season only. The first leg. That's the word I'm looking for. The leg. Terrible. The Kentucky Derby and the Preakness will be running in September and October. And Belmont will be running next month with no fans in attendance. Obviously, it stinks for the two of us because we've made that a tradition the last 4 years. Really good stuff, obviously, but you have to do what you have to do with Belmont. I know for a fact, and I will say this live on air. I'm going to be gambling that day, June 20th. I will be gambling. I'm going to put some money onto NYRA bets, and hey, listen, let's have a blast. No fans, and we'll probably see it on television. I'd love to see. It's also, Nick, if I'm not mistaken, it was shortened to 1 mile and an eighth. So they shortened it about 9 furlongs, I believe.
I don't know the exact math there. It's normally 1.5 miles. So that's actually a lot. That's a big difference.
Yeah. So because they usually it's usually about 1.5 miles, and it's the longest of the 3 legs or all 3 Triple Crown races. Yeah. Crazy.
It's also weird to me. It seems like the 3 Triple Crown races weren't like, I don't know how to put this. They weren't communicating with each other because somehow the Preakness and Kentucky Derby rescheduled themselves, or however that's done, way in advance, and the Belmont all of a sudden is thrown before all of them. This is so odd and confusing the way they did it. You would think that all 3 would have been rescheduled with knowledge of the other ones and done properly and put in the right order. It was very odd to see how this all shook out. Very confusing situation. I don't know why you wouldn't reschedule the Belmont for after them. I guess it's because Belmont's not normally open at that time, maybe, but I don't know. You could change things. You could open it up for a week. You could have it run at Aqueduct or something to change it however you have to. I don't know. It just seemed like a very bizarre way of them coming out with all this. And the fact that it's not in the right order is going to definitely annoy me. But it really sucks that we can't go. That's the other thing I was hoping. If you do it way later in the summer, there's a chance they could have fans there and we could go. But with the construction going on at Belmont, it's almost a blessing in disguise that they wanted to jam a bunch of people in there with less room. So
that's true. And we actually, I remember when you and I went to Belmont that one day, we went to Belmont that one day and we got to see normally where we sit at the same exact place in the general admission area in the backyard. And I remember that was absolutely crammed. And just to think about it, the gates would come back and where the food trucks would be in that parking lot where the arena is currently being built. It would be so tight. And, obviously now with COVID going on, I'm extremely glad, okay, I think we can, if there were fans, I don't think I'd go, that's just me, if there was, it'd be different if it would be, I don't know. There's, like I said, a lot of speculation. We don't know. Who knows? I'm just saying that because I'm a, germaphobe freak right now and thinking about COVID, and being there, whatever. But yeah, just to piggyback off of what Nick said, with it being now the first leg of the Triple Crown and with there being no communication whatsoever, Nick, it was very weird because we heard back, I believe it was a couple of months ago, right when all of this became an official pandemic, Churchill Downs and in Pimlico where the Preakness is, they came out right away and they moved those dates quick. And obviously because obviously the first Saturday in March and the second Saturday in March as well, in May, the first Saturday in May and the second Saturday in May, it wouldn't be possible to do this in these affected states. But it didn't make sense where it came out only just a few days ago with it being less than a month away, that they're going to reschedule it. We knew it was going to happen. It was inevitable. And I honestly forgot about it. I was like, well, what's the deal here? What are we doing? When are we going to receive our money back? And thankfully, it's finally happening. But still, for it to be the first, it's very difficult. There's a lot of talk, obviously, with Belmont and with it being one less turn, from what I'm reading here. One less turn. For the inexperienced horse, it would be an advantage. And I think that even though it would annoy me to see Belmont being the first leg, I think hearing something along those lines and hearing it from these horse racing experts, see where you might have a dark horse, no pun intended, a dark horse potentially coming around and possibly surprising the field. That would be pretty cool to see. That I don't know the exact horses just yet who will be racing, but if that's a plus for the inexperienced, we could have a long shot. And for those bettors, that could be some good stuff. That could be some good stuff, and that could be some bad news for me, for Crazy Joey. Yeah, because that would be if I lose, oh boy. All right, so moving forward with this stuff here, we look now to the NCAA fallout, financial fallout, and the reason why we bring this up is because we'll get to baseball in just a minute. That's where we'll end off. But we need to do a little bit, we have to stick to the negative news and just keep it negative the whole way because we're news. It's just, it's obvious. We're all negative. I'm sorry. When is there a positive during all of this? And with the NCAA, the financial fallout has gotten so large that it's affecting schools. It's affecting economies, certain state economies as well. Central Michigan University has dissolved men's track and field. Akron has dissolved men's golf, cross country, women's tennis. Bowling Green has dissolved baseball. That's humongous. FIU, Florida International University, has dissolved indoor track and fields. The University of Cincinnati, and I think this is the biggest one, has dissolved men's soccer. And for those that do not know, really the order of college sports, obviously, it's with being football, basketball, and then obviously right after that is baseball. In the schools that have it, is baseball, and then it's soccer. So to dissolve at such a big school, such as the University of Cincinnati, to dissolve men's soccer, we didn't hear a lot of the University of Cincinnati having these financial issues, but really it's not going to come out publicly because that could be a humongous deal breaker in terms of enrollment numbers. The people that want to go there and study or potentially play, that would be a terrible recruiting pitch. But now, obviously, there's one less men's soccer program in Division I. ODU, they dissolved wrestling. Not really that big of a deal there, but still a big deal because there's obviously jobs lost and potential wrestling careers that have been either put on hold or completely destroyed. And the University of Furman University, they dissolved baseball. So two sports or two schools that have dissolved baseball. That is humongous. Baseball is slowly beginning to die, as we've said countless times. With my affiliation with the Scouts Association, it's very difficult to say that in front of them, but I have said it. I have said it to them before. And, me and Nick have said this countless times. It really, unfortunately, is dying. And I tell these scouts they wear World Series rings and they've scouted big name players. And, with that being said, they might not have a job for much longer because you have a team also like Nick, the Los Angeles Angels. I don't know if you saw that article, but they're dissolving almost more than half of their scouting department. And you think of what we've spoken about with money and, do these teams really need it? Whatever. The man is worth $3 billion. And to start dissolving scouting departments, overpaying for these free agents, such as, obviously you're not overpaying for Anthony Rendon, but, you think of a horrible, horrible farm system as the LA Angels of Anaheim. And now it's just going to get even worse because of this financial crisis and pandemic and everything, but you didn't have to start dissolving, or not even that, but laying off these, and not even furloughing. You're laying off these scouts. And these are hard workers. They travel around the country. They travel around the world to find top-tier baseball names. And it's almost an insult because really, you're worth all this money, and I know for a fact you can pay a little bit more out of pocket. In my opinion, that's considered greed. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. That's terrible.
It's deplorable. It's pathetic. It's sad. Every single owner of every single sports team should be paying every single employee their full amount, whatever they'd normally be making, and maybe even give them bonuses for what's going on right now. All those people are struggling to make ends meet. There's no way to get other jobs right now. There's no way for them to support their families if they're not getting paid. They could be in real danger right now. These guys who are living in mansions with billions of dollars to their name can't afford to pay these guys. It's absurd. It's pathetic. This is going to become a Donald Sterling type of situation where franchises should start getting taken away from these people if you're not going to have that little empathy to help out the people that have been there working for your team and helping you make all this money and have all the values of these franchises go up every year. It's despicable. It's terrible. Every single one of you. So with the Boston Bruins, took forever to announce that they were going to pay their arena workers, even though they weren't working. Like, things like that, little things like that are just so sad to see from people that have everything they could ever want and all the money more than they could ever spend, and they still can't help out the people that are there doing all the work. Ridiculous.
I look at it, Nick, and I will share a little bit of positive light here because I've started watching Shark Tank and with Mark Cuban. And there was one episode, I believe it was the season finale. I don't know if you saw it. Are you caught up with Shark Tank? I don't want to.
No, it's just something I watch every so often.
Okay, all right, good. Because I've been watching it really, really religiously, and I'm not a fan of Mark Cuban at all because of his Laker hatred, his political affiliation. But that's a complete that's for another topic, another show, another time, or whatever it may be. Not relevant with the show, but I have a soft spot for Mark Cuban now. And the reason why is because there were a couple of guys, entrepreneurs, that's the word, entrepreneurs that came in, and I believe they were looking for $65,000 for a 10%, or I think it was a 10% stake in their business, which was something with chocolate milk. And it had to do with protein shakes and things along those lines. And it was sad because not sad because we know how Kevin O'Leary is for those that watch it. Mr. Wonderful. I think he's fantastic. I think he is fantastic because he says it exactly how it is. He just mocks them and he just completely tears them down. But he is fantastic. He's fantastic. But the reason why I applaud Mark Cuban is because Kevin O'Leary said, Mr. Wonderful said, you're basically, he said, murdering your money. You've murdered that money, that $65,000. And these entrepreneurs, I give them a lot of credit because they didn't have a single offer. And Mark Cuban said, and I think it was Robert who was there towards the end of the panel, right next to Lori, and Barbara Corcoran right away. She said no, she was out. Kevin O'Leary said it's an embarrassment, he's out. Lori said no. Robert was, he put up an offer, and he said no. But then Mark Cuban came in and said, you know what, I'm going to give you guys a chance because I really like the way you guys are doing it. And the reason how all of this stems back to what we were talking about with the Angels and the Bruins is because Mark Cuban said, you know what? What's $65,000 to me? I'm worth $5 billion. $5 billion. Okay. Now, to me and you, Nick, $65,000 is a lot of money. Okay. But for a man that is worth $5 billion with a buh, you can give that money away if you want to. Listen, I give credit where credit is due in terms of with Mark Cuban, because again, I don't like him, but he tried with these kids. And just to give the money that at one point could be going towards these these workers or wherever it may be, but he's giving these kids a chance. And I find it so remarkable how these owners, not named Mark Cuban, can't pay. And you know what, Nick? It's not even the full salary, because you know what? If you take a pay cut, fine. You completely lay them off. If you're not managing your expenses properly and you're worth all that money, okay, fine. Don't completely lay them off. Give them a pay cut at the bare minimum. Minimum.
That's dead wrong. First of all, don't give them a pay cut. You should be paying the full salary. You are.
Well, if it's all right, if they're all right, but the whole thing though is that let's say if they're getting paid $2 million or something, that's a lot of dough.
Yeah, it's not. It's a scout. But the other side of the equation is it might actually be better to lay them off than make them take pay cuts, because they can at least get unemployment and maybe earn more that way. I don't know exactly how the math would work.
At some point, and this is
if you're going to give them a massive pay cut, it's almost an insult. You're almost better off firing them and let them get the money elsewhere.
Well, the whole thing though is that, and again, this is a conversation for another thing, is that at some point unemployment's going to run out. But that is, at some point that's going to happen, which is where, again, you have these billionaires where, there's a possibility where we could see Jeff Bezos being the first trillionaire ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to go off topic. This is a sports show. This is not a political show, but I had to say that because we were talking about the Angels and the Bruins. But keeping it moving forward, right now with Major League Baseball slowly coming back, we're talking about these pay cuts. July 1st start looks to be imminent. Blake Snell, Bryce Harper. Blake Snell has already said he's not playing under the pay cut or whatever it may be with Major League Baseball. And then Mark Teixeira came out and said that, he would be playing under it. Mark Teixeira has been very vocal about it lately. A lot of these guys would be taking pay cuts. We have not heard any other significant such as Blake Snell, to say that he would be playing under this pay cut. Your thoughts, Nick? Is it the same as these? Is it the same as the owner one?
Well, it's not, because players make a lot more money. This is a big different decision normally, and they're also playing a shortened season. So this isn't about guys making $50,000-$60,000 or scouts making maybe 100 or 200. These are baseball players all pushing $1 million at least. So very different numbers. It's weird because they're playing a shortened season, and normally most collective bargaining agreements are a revenue split between players and owners, and that's basically where it starts. That usually something like 52 to the owners, 48 to the players, and that's kind of where these salaries end up coming from. Is that's how all the money gets divvied out. The revenue is going to be obscenely less in baseball this year, so realistically, everybody involved is going to take a pay cut. Owners are going to make less money, players are going to make less money. They just have to find a way to agree on what's acceptable. But single guys like Blake Snell, who are still on very small rookie deals, baseball's pay scale is obscenely broken. It needs to be fixed in incredible ways. Guys make no money like the first 5 years of their careers for some bizarre reason. So he's the kind of guy who's not going to risk it. I don't blame him. I mean, why risk an $800,000 salary if you have money in the bank? You'd rather stay home, because eventually he's going to get a big money payday. But why go out there and risk, if you're going to get like half of that? Why risk playing when you know you're going to get paid eventually? Just sit out, keep your arm fresh. Baseball players, especially pitchers, it's such a fragile position. You get one major arm injury, you could change the entire outlook of your financial career. So it all has to be bargained out. It all has to be worked out. But everyone's going to lose money in that whole sports business. Players, owners can't be expected to play their whole salaries. That's pushing it. This is like $300 million worth of salaries for a season. And if the owner's not making any money, that's a tough stretch. Arena workers pay all out. All the lower money guys, yes. Baseball players themselves, that's going to be a tougher decision, and it's going to have to be bargained out, and everyone's going to end up getting a little less.
It's definitely a fair assessment there. You look at, and Nick, you know what? You said it, because you speak about potential financial decision with some of these players. You look at 2018 stats for Blake Snell. I believe he won the AL Cy Young that year, 21-5 with a 1.89 ERA and 31 games pitched. Last year was a shortened year for him because he had injury. And 6-8. 6-8 was his win-loss record in 23 games played with a 4.29 ERA. You know, Nick, it's very funny because we speak about I think it was almost 15 years ago, Chien-Ming Wang. And you look at one little injury in the interleague. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in Houston when Houston was in the National League. And Chien-Ming Wang He had one little hamstring injury, and from that point on, he was never the same. Literally never the same.
Yep.
He was a sure thing. Literally a sure thing. And all of a sudden, one at bat for him changed his whole life, his whole financial outlook, moving forward. And you said it, Nick. I do agree that it's baseball's pay scale is definitely broken. We've seen the NFL make that change. The NBA, it's slowly getting better. NHL obviously is, it's on its way up in terms of revenue. So it takes time. You have guys that are making half of what the NHL salary cap is right now, such as Garrett Cole, over $40 million a year, starting this upcoming year. Gonna have to take a pay cut, obviously, because you have that guy who now in history. And, especially for those that aren't making money, you're going to have to take that pay cut for sure. Lots going on there in baseball to see. We don't know what it's going to be. There's going to be tons of questions. And the biggest question, Nick, that I think here is that they're talking about a universal designated hitter for 2020. Is it here to stay if it comes out this year?
Please don't get rid of this. Stop making us watch pitchers hit. I know we're American League guys. So we really don't have to see it. So my opinion doesn't really matter that much. But in general, I can't believe there are people that want to see pitchers hit. I can't believe it. They are useless. They're batting 100. They can barely get bunts down. It's a waste of an at-bat every single game. We got to watch it 2 or 3 times at least. It's a joke. They're horrible hitters. Not to mention the fact that it gets them injured more often.
Yeah.
We've also seen numbers come out that when a pitcher has to run the bases in any capacity, his ERA is immediately higher the next inning because it takes them out of rhythm. It's so bizarre. Stop with this is like the one thing I don't want to stay the same in baseball. Like I kind of like the purity of it in some situations. This one, it makes no sense. Stop having pitchers hit. Give these big time hitters also another job. Guys that can't play the field anymore. David Ortiz may have never had a career with the Red Sox if he didn't become a DH. Who knows? And it's also cool to see guys like Albert Pujols, who are legends of the game, or Miguel Cabrera, when they get older, they can't handle the field anymore, get to move to DH and still get to hit. I don't know. I don't see the downside of it. I really don't. There aren't enough pitcher moments every year of hitting that anybody should get all giddy over it anymore. Or hit a home run. It's never going to be that high. So just get rid of it.
Well, I mean, I look at it and I say to myself, well, there are Bartolo Colon moments, when
how often does that happen? Once every 5 years?
And listen, that makes for a good meme. That makes for good television. That makes for good radio sometimes. But I have to agree. I think universal designated hitter not only gives jobs, but also it brings something to the table in terms of what the new era of baseball is all about. Have hitters hit and pitchers pitch. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. I was talking just a couple of weeks, I believe 2 weeks ago, to Baltimore Orioles prospect Kevin McGee, who played at St. John's University, and I had asked him about what it would be like to bat. And obviously, he's in Baltimore, so he's in the American League. It wouldn't have to happen unless he was to get traded. And
they can make the World Series,
right? Well, that's true, right? Yeah. Well, if they make the World Series, which sorry, Kevin, it's not going to happen in Baltimore ever. But, again, joking aside, it really could happen, and you could be, he's a relief pitcher. So would it happen? Would he be at, in the batter's box? I doubt it. It's possible, but I don't think so. But, I have to agree here, and I don't like to do a lot of agreeing on the show because it gets dull. But I think, in my opinion, if you see the New York Mets, have a hitter, right? Such as Robinson Cano. And I think he would be extremely beneficial to the DH. Why? Because you still have one of the worst signings by Brody Van Wagenen in Jed Lowry still, who is on the comeback trail to potentially play second base. Oh, wait a minute. That's Jeff McNeil. Hold on. You also have Yoenis Cespedes coming back, playing left field. Well, if you have a pitcher coming in like Jacob deGrom, and yeah, okay, he can hit whatever, little bit here and there, 100, as you said, Nick, there's a job that's lost, such as from Cano or from Cespedes, if he can't play the field. We all know Yoenis Cespedes is making almost $30 million. Yeah, he's coming back from injury. He hasn't played in almost 2 full seasons. I think that the Mets would be extremely beneficial to this, and they would benefit most from it. And I think it should be here to stay. I think, again, seeing the Mets or seeing any National League team in this new era of baseball with a designated hitter, I think it would welcome brand new fans as well. And I think it would almost, I'm not going to say it's going to jumpstart the league once again, or like give it another, like a restart. Because again, baseball is dying, but I think it would go up a little tick to see what these teams can do and how hitters can hit and pitchers can pitch, and what it would be like where pitchers do not have to hit ever, or pitchers never have to hit ever again. Nick, what team would you say would be as a good hitter?
I mean, the Mets are a good one if Cespedes is healthy, because there's no way he can play the field. Like, that would be a major stretch for them. Another National League team, it's hard to think of these off the top of my head because basically every team could use a DH. It's funny, the Cardinals had that hitter who was on their bench. I can't remember his name. Martinez, maybe? Joseph Martinez? Someone like that, who they had to trade away because he was basically a DH that they didn't have a spot for. He couldn't play anymore. Tyler O'Neill? I don't know. Somebody like that. But a lot of National League teams have guys like that. Everybody has at least one aging star that they'd rather have DH than have to force into a spot in the field. Ryan Braun in Milwaukee comes to mind as a guy who's getting up there, but he could still provide value as a bat. It also allows you to rest guys. It's like a half day off for every one of your players. Instead of having to bench them fully, give them a half day off where they just have to hit. They don't have to do anything else. It makes things easier. But every national team could use one. Every National League team could have a hitter in there that's better than a DH. It's not close anymore. It's way split of how good the worst hitter on any American League team is versus the pitcher in the National League.
Yeah, no, I have to agree there. And like I said, I personally believe that it would benefit not only every single team. I think it would benefit the Mets the most, but also in terms of fandom. I think for the other fan that likes to see offense, I think that for those not general baseball fans or the general baseball fan themselves, I think to see, because obviously you would see an uptick in offense, you would see an uptick in home runs and hits in every category on the offensive side of the offensive side of the ball. But you see the way that it is now with baseball and in the National League, in my opinion, yeah, okay, we see bunts, we see whatever it is. It doesn't, I don't like it. I never liked it. I don't like it. I don't think you could ever convince me to like it. It makes no sense to me. And Nick, I actually never knew that stat with the ERA, the next time up being poor the next, I guess, in the next half inning. That's definitely a good stat to keep in, to keep in touch with yourself when you're thinking about, well, this universal DH, it could potentially harm you in the long run. If you're winning or something along those lines, that would be pretty crazy. Also another negative thing, this has been death, all of 2020. And I guess it just keeps adding in Major League Baseball as well. Starling Marte, his wife suddenly passed away from a heart attack just a few days ago when she went in for ankle surgery. And I'm going to go with that's most likely a blood clot that was somewhere found over there. That's usually the universal sign of that when you're fine one day with a broken ankle and then the next you have a heart attack. That's usually what happens. No, again, not, that's just an opinion. Again, I don't like to speculate on death, but, something along those lines. And from someone who's had a blood clot myself, and one that was, sorry?
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So with the two of us having blood clots, we know, we can say, we can speculate because we've been in their shoes before. Thankfully, we've come out on the positive side of it, and our condolences are with the Marte family from all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. Nick, The Last Dance ended last Sunday, and we were talking about earlier when Al Carl was on, and And now that there's nothing on right now in terms of sports, my Sunday nights look pretty dull until Celebrity Family Feud comes on.
See, at least I have Rick and Morty at 11:30 Sunday night, so that's something.
I told you I'm not watching it until you're
right, I know,
back
we
in
didn't finish season 3 yet. I get it, but I'm just saying I have something too.
I know.
But yeah, it was nice being able to sit down at 9:00 and be able to watch TV the rest of the night and have something going on. It was a really well done documentary. There was some cool little tidbits to learn here and there, and see Jordan laughing at the tablet and making everything about some kind of big stink that he had a vengeance on everybody, no matter what it was that happened. Someone could accidentally sneeze on the court and he'd have a vengeance against the guy for the next 20 years. It was very well done. It was entertaining. It was perfect. And we got news recently that they're doing something like that with Tom Brady, and I'm sure that'll be very entertaining as well. It's going to be a very similar type of player with that kind of fire, win at all costs, maybe rub people the wrong way, super dedicated to the game. So it's going to be a similar type of experience. I'm glad they're going to do more of these because obviously it got an unbelievable viewership. And I don't think it's just because of the pandemic. I think even if some regular things were going on, it still would have got a lot of viewing. It was a very, very, very highly anticipated documentary.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And honestly, I believe, and I said this to Brett Hedican and also women's basketball head coach Linda Simino in the Behind the Terriers project that we're working on at St. Francis. And I know I said for sure that it's going to be so hard to replicate such a documentary. And I think not even to replicate, but any documentary, anyone, whatever genre it is, history, sports, art, music, whatever it is, the way the documentary was done, in my opinion, not only the content, because we're diehard sports fans, and a lot of us, like me and you, love Jordan and can't stand LeBron. But basically, what it was, I just think it was so well done that it's going to be so hard for producers and writers and whatever it may be in the media industry to come up with something like this again in any genre. For it to be as good as what we saw, I think there's going to be a humongous hill to climb. And unless ESPN and Netflix and whoever else produced The Last Dance, unless they are producing the Tom Brady one, listen, I would be extremely down to watch it. But Nick, these numbers, when I looked them up, these are Super Bowl numbers. These numbers are Super Bowl numbers that were for like 5 consecutive Sundays. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it helps that nothing else was on, so it definitely gave people an outlet. But one thing that's hard to be able to connect it to anything else is this all started because Michael Jordan allowed for them to film during that last season. So they had unbelievable, unprecedented film of him playing quarters with that bodyguard guy. Like little things like that are what made it so cool to see like the inner workings of it, because they got unprecedented film access. That's where this all started and came from. A lot of the documentary focused on other years of his career. Obviously, it went through everything that ever happened with him, but the cool part of it was that it started from him giving access. We don't have that in sports today. So unless something's already been filming, they're not going to come out with a documentary anytime soon unless someone else decides to give access like that to something. But it all started the perfect storm that Phil Jackson, it was his last year. Jordan, it was up in the air the whole time whether that was going to be his last year with the Bulls. So it was just such a perfect storyline to follow that it would take an unbelievably perfect storm for another team in another sport or another event to be able to produce a documentary like that. We've seen what compares to it is the ESPN 30 for 30s are all excellent, and they've got plenty of great ones of those coming out, and those should continue to be great as time goes on. But to have another one like Jordan's is going to take a monumental event, and it was so well done. You're right. Give credit to the producers and everybody involved for putting out an unbelievable product and being able to move it up and give it to people when they really needed to watch it. But it's going to take a lot for anything to ever be that good again. You can't compare anything else that comes out to it because it's so special on its own.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's perfectly said. And not only that, but you also look at, I know we are running out of time, but I do want to get to one final thing in terms of Phil Jackson and Ian O'Connor. I want to get to that in just a second. I know Nick knows exactly what I'm talking about because there was a tweet that he responded to with that when it came to Phil Jackson and whatever, but we'll get to that in a second. But and not only that, Nick, but we also spoke, you spoke about how, to replicate a documentary or to have it build up to that to be so to that magnitude. Where can you replicate it? Can you be able to build up this hype again? Have the locker room access, have the access, period. On the court, in the locker room. Because obviously, we hear about it months in advance that it's going to happen, such as Hard Knocks, the All or Nothing from Amazon Prime. We've heard about that, and now that it's, a yearly or an annual film or an annual series, okay, we know that it's going to be, but are we going to see a guy like Tom Brady, for instance, or Peyton Manning, or whoever it may be, a generational player in any sport? Did Wayne Gretzky allow that? No. Tom Brady allow that? Well, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen this upcoming year. But now, exactly what you said, Nick, it doesn't happen a lot today because social media is there. They don't really have to do it anymore. And just to see a monumental player that is a generation player access, it doesn't happen anymore because of the extracurriculars with social media and the smartphones or the regular cell phones that you could just record. You could record a whole documentary on this. That's it. And it wouldn't be as good, but it would ruin certain things and ruin the hype from such as Last Dance. One final thing, Nick, we spoke about Ian O'Connor, ESPN writer. He came out publicly and said that, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, this documentary showed that Phil Jackson, it was basically that he considered it that, just to try and get the right words, that this documentary showed how good of a coach Phil Jackson was, because he won a total of six rings with the Bulls and 5 with the Lakers. So the most in NBA history as a coach. But no, that's not the case. But then you think of, well, it had something to do with being a Knicks executive or anything along those lines.
I know it, so I'm gonna break in here. Ian O'Connor said that he thinks the documentary made people's opinions of Phil Jackson go up and makes Knicks fans feel better about him because they saw how great he was in the documentary.
No, that's not the case at all. And
no sense. That's why I responded to it, that it made no sense. Every Knicks fan hates Phil Jackson for what he did to them as an executive. This documentary didn't change anything. He was a Knicks player. He won a championship with them. He was a beloved figure until he got there as an executive. He did a horrific job. He put no effort into it. He destroyed an already poor franchise and made terrible move after terrible move. He set them back for at least 5 more years. It was a disaster. This documentary didn't make him look better to Knicks fans. We already knew he was one of the greatest coaches of all time. We already knew everything that he did with the Knicks in the 70s, and he won the title. They touched on that for a second in the documentary, but it was just a ridiculous claim. No Knicks fan is like, wow, Phil Jackson's a great guy because 30 years ago he won championships with Michael Jordan. Yeah, that was a real major accomplishment. Thanks, dude. We get it. We know he coached a bunch of great teams, but as an executive, he was a laughingstock. And he still looks like that today to Knicks fans because he completely wrecked that whole situation. It was terrible.
That's true, and I have to agree there. You look at when he was a coach, and the triangle worked when he was the one running it. When you try and have other people run your system when you're not the one to do that, it just doesn't work out.
It also fit the modern NBA. The modern NBA was about spacing and shooting threes. The triangle offense is more geared to generate mid-range jumpers, which are a dinosaur era thing at this point. Teams want to avoid mid-range jumpers as much as possible. The triangle was pushing the Knicks to do it more. Players didn't like it. They didn't have a coach that could do it. They didn't have a coach that could teach it. They didn't have the personnel to make it work. It was a disaster from day one. It should have never been forced on the team.
Well, yeah, and again, if you know what, we could have seen different results if he was the head coach. Could it have worked if he was the coach? Well, we don't know. But but you know what? It all depends on the personnel. And you know what? And I think
the team was terrible. It was a bad team.
Right, the team was terrible. But you know what though? But you have to look at it and you just have to say to yourself, well, okay, well, and I looked at some of the responses to that respective tweet, and I've seen, well, okay, well, Jordan, Pippen, Kobe, Shaq, Pau Gasol, Ron Harper, Horace Grant, all these different guys, Dennis Rodman. Look at the personnel that he had. And then someone wrote down, I think next, well, okay, he wouldn't have been able to do it because he didn't have those players. And those players made him a great coach. I don't know about that. I think, again, you're right. I think It all depends on the personnel. It all depends on the modern NBA, or would it have worked out after he left LA? I think it was 2014, I think, or 2015, I think, or just before, if I'm not, or 2011. No, I think it was 2011. He left, and then the whole Mike D'Antoni thing after. But after 2011, could it have worked? No, it didn't work. We saw it. Him as an executive, he tried putting it on his coaches, and it just didn't work. I don't know. There's but again, that to me does not make Phil better. Does not make Knicks fans have a soft spot for Phil Jackson, especially Knicks fans, because it's the Knicks. It's the New York market. We all know how New York fans are. Nick is a New York fan. He just said it. It's kind of sad that Ian O'Connor would say that. Good man too. Ladies and gentlemen, episode number 4 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast will come to you on part 1 of parts on Tuesday, where it will be a doubleheader, May 26th. It's going to be Essential Wrestling Podcast number 4, starting at 6 p.m., followed by the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, episode number 15, coming to you live at 8 p.m. Right here on the Eastern Observer. College Hoops Digest contributor / writer Jake Zimmer will be my guest, starting at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night. And that is going to do for us here right now on episode number 26. Again, we do wish Tyler Adelle well. Don't know if he is okay right now, or if he's listening still to us, but feel better. And we hope to see you back whenever we're back on, most likely next week, but who knows, that could change in the world of sports. We'll get there when we get there. But again, follow us on social media at Observe Eastern on Twitter and on Facebook at Eastern Observer. So for all of us here at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks, that's Nick Partain. I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us here at the Eastern Observer